What's up, you guys? I'm excited for this one. We're talking UFC 314. A lot of people have been saying that this is the most stacked card of the year thus far, as we just surpassed the first quarter of the 2025 calendar year, and we've already had some solid fight cards take place. You guys hit the comment section up below. Let me know if you guys agree with that sentiment. I think it'll be cool as we slide through the year. We'll keep an eye on which card holds that #1 spot. Okay, and I'm kind of in agreement. I think that this is the most stacked card that we've seen so far this year, and that's even after losing Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal, which, if you guys haven't heard, Jeff Neal pulls out of that fight. Now Carlos Prates will be taking on Ian Garry, and that's that headliner of what's looking to be a fun Kansas City fight night. And speaking of headliners, look what's on the menu here. We got the vacant featherweight championship of the world on the line after Topuria leaves it in the dust, looks to bump up to 155. Volkanovski gets an opportunity to regain what was his for so long. The longtime reigning featherweight champion of the world, Volkanovski, will be taking on Diego Lopes. Since Diego Lopes made that short notice UFC debut against Movsar Evlovojev, he has looked phenomenal. All right, even though he dropped that fight, we saw the evolution in his game. I mean, this fight's going to be action-packed. I cannot wait to see how it takes place. Volkanovski, with his back up against the wall, comes in on a 2-fight losing skid. Not just any type of losing skid either. He gets knocked out in devastating fashion in both of those bouts, but it's against the most elite fighters in the fight game right now. Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev, right? You throw John Jones' name in the mix there. You're talking about the best fighters in the fight game right now. So I just can't wait to see how Volkanovski actually looks. The winner of that fight will be the new champion of this division. And while we're on that topic, let me just state right now, Patricio Pitbull takes on Yair Rodriguez here on the main card. If Pitbull goes out there and wins in devastating fashion, if he goes out there and gets a finish, or even just gets his hand raised in an epic type of fight, he will be next to fight for the belt. That's my opinion. I think he will be next, right? The greatest Bellator fighter of all time, all right? Especially if Volkanovski wins. That fight has such a storyline because as Patricio Pitbull was over there in Bellator reigning supreme, everybody wanted to see how he would fare against the best that the UFC had to offer, which of course was Volkanovski. That was a fight that everybody wanted to see for so long. And even though they're up there in age, I think that everybody would just love to see that matchup. And even if Diego Lopes prevails here in the main event, I think that that's a fight that would be so exciting as well. Pitbull versus Diego Lopes. So I think that he will be next. I think that he'll surpass Movsar Evlovojev, who is just not the most exciting fighter, even though he continues to win. And the UFC is not playing around with Pitbull here. He's 37 years old, just signed with the UFC. They paid him some money. We saw this just a couple years ago when the UFC signed Michael Chandler. All right, they threw him right into the mix. They weren't playing around. They were happy to finally have their hands on him. They respect the work that Chandler put in over there, and they respect the work that Pitbull put in over there, and they understand that they deliver from an entertainment standpoint, and they're elite. And I think you're going to see them handle Pitbull the same way they handled Chandler, just throwing him right into the mix. And let me just say this before we officially get the show going. As you guys can tell, I'm all amped up here. If Paddy Pimblett goes out here in the co-main event and defeats Michael Chandler, speak of the devil, Paddy Pimblett is going to set himself up for legendary matchups, okay? He's going to be fighting legends. He may get that Dustin Poirier retirement matchup. You could see him taking on Justin Gaethje next, maybe a Charles Oliveira, something like that. I don't know, but he will be getting elite fighters after this matchup here if he goes out there and prevails in a solid way. If he goes out here and finishes Michael Chandler or dominates this fight, I'm telling you guys, you're going to see a big step up in competition for Paddy. All right, he has the name already. People aren't completely sold that he has the ability to fight with the elite in this division. If he goes out here and proves that he could, you're going to see the UFC give him those types of opportunities. So that's exciting as well. All right, if you're new here to the channel, normally I don't ramble so much here in the previews to these events, but I'm excited about this one. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. If everybody can just like this video real quick, it'll mean a lot to me. Go follow me on my social media, and I'll put a solid offer on the table. If anybody wants my official targets for this card, of course, you could reach out to me through email or DM me on Instagram, and I'll give you further details there. But if you want them for free, if you sign up through my referral link to bovada.lv, I will give you the entire slate for free. And as some of you guys noticed, I'm no longer partnered up with my most recent partners, and we're back with the OG BOV to the ADA, which I have a lot of love and respect for them, and I've been working with them for a very long time. And in fact, that is the sportsbook that I use. All right, guys, they're great, and you'll get an added bonus to your account if you sign up through my link. So reach out to me if you're interested in that. I'll give you my entire slate.
The teller, the teller, the teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
In the women's bantamweight division, we have the number 13th ranked Nora Cornolle taking on Hailey Cowan. Now, both these fighters are similar in the sense that they're both in their mid-30s and they don't have an overwhelming amount of fight experience. In fact, they're hoping that the peak of their fighting careers are on the horizon. And that's not always the case when you're talking about 35-year-old fighters and 33-year-old fighters, but both these women just have 10 professional fights. Cowan has had a real tough time making the walk to the octagon. Since that Dana White's Contender Series fight, she's pulled out of about 3 bouts due to injury. She just has that lone UFC debut matchup against Jamie Lynn Horth where she fell short. And that's unfortunate, right? Because we talked about her age. I mean, you really wanted to see a fighter like this getting that activity and growing in the cage. She's fun to watch, right? She's a little messy when she's in there, right? You could pull up a lot of tape on her back from her LFA days, and she even had a bout over an Invicta. I mean, we've seen her around even before she fought on DWCS, and that fight against Claudia Liet was another close bout for her, right? That was a split decision victory for her, all right? And she made mistakes in that bout, but I do like her grittiness. I like the toughness that she possesses. She's not the most refined product, and I think that she could run into some trouble here in a kickboxing type of a match against a fighter like Nora, who's pretty damn polished there, okay? And she possesses some solid power as well. I'm not turning my back on Nora just because she fell short for the first time in the UFC in that last fight against Jacqueline Cavalcante, a fighter that I rate pretty damn high in this division. Okay, one of the few fighters that's up and coming in this division that does show promise. And Cavalcante already showed to be superior the first time that they fought, all right? Cavalcante had a victory over her in her UFC debut. She's the only fighter that's ever defeated Nora. I like what I've seen from Nora when things are going well for her, right? When you look back at the Melissa Mullins fight, she had success stuffing takedowns. Even when she was taken down, she reversed Mullins down in the mat, got back up to her feet. She was landing the more damaging strikes. She got that KO in the second round. Jocelyn Edwards, at least it's a recognizable name. And Cowan just doesn't have that one standout performance where you could take a look at her resume and say, hey, look, she went out there and defeated a recognizable name, and she did it in convincing fashion, okay? You take a look at all those LFA fights and whatnot. Those fighters that she versed never really panned out. You take a look at what their records eventually went on to be. They're 500 type fighters. She's going to war with those girls. She's losing to some of them. She's slightly prevailing in some, and there's just nothing that really stands out on paper. The one thing that you like from her is her toughness, but I think that this fight should take place on the feet. I think that Nora should be able to keep this fight standing. She's the more refined and polished striker. I know she's very hungry to bounce back with the victory. You saw the disdain in her eyes when she took that loss to Jacqueline Cavalcante in that last fight. I like that. I like what I saw from her. She's a hungry fighter, and I think that she comes out here and she eats. Okay, let's go take a look at the odds for this fight. We're taking a look at the current odds in Bovada, where she opened up as a minus 175, and she is currently a minus 183. And overall, we're seeing that slow and steady action continue to come in on her. That's kind of a good sign. If you're backing her, people are kind of seeing the same things that we're talking about here. All right, the only thing that Cowan could potentially bring to the table here where she could be a threat to Nora is with the inactivity that she's had. If we suddenly see major growth in her fight game when she's in the octagon, right? So she's been in the gym and she's been grinding, and maybe we see her show up and be a much better version of herself. She has a solid frame for the division. Maybe she could change levels, have some success down on the mat. I mean, she's scrappy on the feet as well. Maybe it's just an ugly war and she sneaks off a split decision. If you're backing Cowan, that's what you're hoping to see. You're putting some faith into the development there, and you see some value on a plus 160, plus 158 line. That's where it is currently. All right, so that's the mindset there. I'm on the other side of things. I'm going to stand behind what I've seen. I like the activity that Nora's had. Not that she's been extremely active, but a lot more active than Hailey. And I like the hunger that I see. And I will say that Nora Cornolle wins a unanimous decision. I'm going to say that she locks up 2 rounds, just landing the more significant strikes and having enough success keeping this fight standing. One of the more rare shoot box upper weight class fighters, Marco Tulio, looks to now go 2-0 in the UFC. He was already 2-0 in Dana White's Contender Series before getting that official opportunity to join the big league. He's taking on Tresean Gore here. Tresean Gore had his experience on The Ultimate Fighter. He definitely hasn't been that active over the years. He's still just 5-2, man. Just has 7 professional fights if you're not counting those Ultimate Fighter bouts, which you should count those, but still not a lot of experience. He's going to have a full plate here because Tulio is a much more promising fighter than who Gore has been in there with recently. Okay, I rate Tulio already much higher than the Antonio Trocolis or the Josh Frems of the world. And we've seen Gore have some suspect performances kicking off his UFC career. I mean, let's not forget when he was knocked out by Cody Brundage. Marco Tulio is an absolute knockout artist, okay? More than half of his wins come by way of KO. And you see when he looks to step on the gas pedal, I mean, he can finish you up. In that first bout that Tulio had with Yusri Belgari, the teammate of Alex Pereira, a decorated kickboxer, all right, he didn't have that sense of urgency. That's the reason why he didn't get the contract. But let's be clear, he went out there and dominated the fight. After that bout there, he goes on to string off 3 knockouts in a row, all right, including the return to DWCS where he knocked out Matteo Letho, the French kickboxer, had a knockout before that on the LFA scene. And then in his UFC debut, he went out there and devastatingly finished Ihor Potieria. All right, I think that Tulio has some real potential. I want to see more from him as far as how well-rounded he is. I want to see a little bit more from his ground game, but he does seem to check those boxes off to me when I've seen him down in the mat. I think he's more polished there than maybe some people believe. I think time will tell. He's a fighter that feels confident in his striking. He's very measured and he's technical. And for the most part, that's where he feels that he's going to get the better of his opponent. Now, it'll be interesting here because Tresean Gore does show to have some pop with his striking, but the majority of his victories are actually coming by way of sub. And when you take a look at his last victory against Trockley, he actually pulled off the standing guillotine choke, and that was pretty impressive. That's not something that you always see. You got to really possess some serious power to be able to crank that sub like that in that position. And before that, he pulled off a guillotine choke against Josh Fremd as well. So he's coming off back-to-back guillotine chokes. That's definitely something that he has in his arsenal. The victories that he had on The Ultimate Fighter haven't aged the best over Ryder Newman and Gilbert Urbina. Urbina never took that next step in his career. Took an L against Brian Battle. We know Brian Battle's a stud there. So, Gore, he's an interesting fighter. We'll see what version of him shows up. We'll see if he starts to live up to the potential some people thought that he once had. I remember his manager did reach out to me after the knockout loss that he took to Cody Brundage and said that he had a horrible weight cut. In fact, that he almost went to the hospital before the fight. It's definitely worth bringing that up because that could have had something to do with the fact that his lights shut off so easily. All right. And that could be a problem when Tulio is slinging those things towards your way. So at the end of the day, I don't really care if Gore has an amazing weight cut and comes in fully ready to go. I still think that Tulio is just a more polished fighter. I think that he has a higher ceiling, and I put more faith into him coming into the cage and just showing up once again. I'm high on him. I really am. I think that if he puts his head on right, this is a fighter that can go pretty far in this division. I like the team that he trains with. I think that he's going to be ready for anywhere this fight goes. And let's go take a look at the odds here. And it looks like the masses are in agreement with me as we see Tulio open up as a -300, and he is currently a -360. So we see action coming in on him, even with him opening up as a big favorite. All right, he's probably going to settle around a -420, 450. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this line continues to trend that way. People are high on him. I think that he gets the job done, and I'm actually going to say that he gets a KO. I'm going to say that he gets the knockout. And in this spot here, I'm going to go with the second round finish. But as the fight starts to pick up, I just think one of those heavy hooks are going to land. I don't think that Gore is going to be able to get this fight down to the mat. And that's not really where he thrives anyway. I don't think that he's a fighter that's looking to shoot single legs on you and get on top of you and look to set up a sub there. He's kind of like a counter sub artist, right? If you make a mistake, he'll grab a hold of your neck and he'll sub you there. I think that Tulio should be prepared and be ready to avoid that. You guys know who he trains with over at Shootbox, and he gets all types of wild guillotines thrown his way, and I think he'll be prepared there. Give me Marco Tulio Silva to get that second round knockout. The Tibetan Eagle, Sumudaerji, takes on Mitch, the Possum Raposo. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking the Eagle is definitely going to prevail against a possum, right? In fact, I think they're hunting possums, that excellent eyesight, narrowing down on them, coming from the skies, snatching them up with their claws. But that's not necessarily how I think this fight's going to go. Giving you guys a little sneak peek there. This may actually be the start of me throwing quite a few dogs your guys' way. And if you guys follow me on IG at MMA Fortune Teller, you guys know we had the teller rocking that dog, the bounty hunter mullet, and a little post. And you may see that after this fight card takes place. Because, listen, Mitch Raposo, and I'm not saying that this is going to be my big underdog target. Stick with me throughout this video. But I kind of like Raposo here, man. 26 years old. You take a look at some of his more suspect losses. Understand that he was just 22 when he took that L against Ludovic Shalinian, who was a fighter that never really panned out, all right, on The Ultimate Fighter. Jake Hadley was also a young fighter at the time, and I think he's a little bit more talented than he gets credit for. I know he fell short quite often in the UFC, and he's since departed, but he's somewhat of a talented fighter. He got caught in a sub there. Okay, these fights that we're talking about were 4 to 5 years ago. Raposo is just 26. I mean, he was around 22 years old when those fights were taking place, and I believe when you look at fighters from when they're 22 to 26, you see massive growth in their fight game. All right. Now they're still evolving from when they're 26 to, let's say, 30, but I don't think it grows as rapidly generally. And when you take a look at Tszyu, yeah, he's a real rangy striker that can go out there and knock you out. He has that very long left hand. But I mean, he's had some questionable performances even as of recently when he's 28 years old or whatnot. You take a look at the Tim Elliott fight, got caught in an elementary arm triangle choke there in the first round, fell short against Matt Schnell in an absolute war. And I know he had a lot of success in that fight, but we saw that he made some mistakes. He got overzealous, he got reckless, and he got finished there, got caught in that triangle choke. And when you take a look at his victories, none of them really stand out. When you're talking Andre Sukumtat, Malcolm Gordon, Zaruk Adashev, I mean, none of these fighters have ever really proven anything in the UFC. Got submitted via armbar by Luis Smoka, a fighter that never really was able to cut it long-term in the UFC. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on here. And when you pull up Mitch Raposo's most recent fight before getting this second opportunity in the UFC, or should I say first fight in the UFC, really, right? Because since the Contender Series L to Jake Hadley, he actually never had an official UFC bout coming from The Ultimate Fighter. Okay, but you take a look at the Justin Valentin fight. Okay, championship rounds, goes into the fourth round, finds that finish. Beautiful slip of the head there where he follows it up with the body strike and finishes him up. But he dominated that fight, and I thought that his striking looked really good throughout it. Of course, we know he has the wrestling background. His hips look great when he was stuffing takedowns, but his striking is looking better and better. He's switching stances. He looks pretty quick, and I think he has some pop in his hands. Now, the return bout that we were getting to here against Andre Lima, you guys know that I've been praising Andre Lima since even really entering that Dana White's Contender Series bout that he had, and not everybody was really on board with him, and I think people are starting to see what I've been talking about. I know some of you guys were already on board. I'm not saying all of you, but I think that Andre Lima's high level. Okay, it starts with his kickboxing, but he's well-rounded. So taking that L that he did to him, which was a split decision L, but it was not really a warranted split decision L. He definitely lost that fight. That one had me scratching my head. I was just really confused. Lima outstruck him 52 to 32 and was landing the more significant strikes. Okay, he completely dictated the pace of that fight. Okay, but Lima is high level. I think that if you throw Sumudaerji in there with Lima, I think that Lima finishes him. I think that he would find a finish down on the mat one way or another. Both these fighters in Raposo and Sumudaerji have still never been knocked out. They've shown to be durable there, but it's not out of the realm that somebody gets cracked with the shot because both these fighters are pretty dangerous offensively. Take a look at Tszyu. 13 of his 16 victories come by way of KO, and Raposo, 4 of his 9 victories come by way of KO. We talked about that development that we've seen in his hands. All right, but the X factor here, what's getting me to side with Raposo is I think that there is an element of him potentially getting this fight down to the mat and pulling off a sub. Sumudaerji has been subbed 6 times out of his 7 losses, and he has quite a few suspect losses even before joining the UFC. He's kind of he's a different type of fighter. He does some things well and brings in those long intangibles, but he also definitely has holes in his game. So we'll see if Raposo can take advantage of that. You take a look at the numbers. You can't really judge these too hard because this is based off of Raposo's fight against Andre Lima. So, I mean, the numbers are going to be a little skewed, and you take Sumudaerji's numbers for what you will. I mean, he does have a longer track record in the UFC. So, I mean, not bad numbers But I'm going to go with the dog here. Let's go take a look at the line. Raposo opened up as a plus 175. He did touch a plus 153. So for a while, it seemed like people were kind of in agreement with what I was seeing. But then now, interestingly enough, it's dipped back the other way. And Raposo is a plus 180. All right. So people completely changing their minds there. I'm sticking with my gut to the fact that this is a fight that should be kept much closer at the very least. And even besides that, I'm taking Raposo to win the fight straight up. With the card like this, man, you may see me barking out a lot of finishes because I'm amped up. But I mean, I think that the submission is actually realistic. I think that it is realistic. Maybe Raposo hurts him first in a war, and then he gets him down to the mat and pulls off an arm triangle choke. Or even better yet, I'm going to call a rear naked choke. I'm going to say he hurts him and he jumps onto his back and pulls off an RNC. We've seen Raposo go out there and get a couple RNCs back in the day, so it's not out of the realm. In the middleweight division, we have Michał Oleksiejczuk taking on Sedriques Dumas. Oleksiejczuk, a fighter that's widely known for his very fluid and active southpaw boxing style. This is a fighter that once established himself up in the light heavyweight division. He kicked off his UFC career hitting Khalil Rountree up with the 30-27. Now, that fight was overturned due to a failed drug test, but he followed up that performance with 2 first-round knockout victories over Jean Vellante and Antigilov. He also had a split decision victory against the respectable Modestas Bukauskas. If you take a look at the losses that he took up there, they were against very respectable fighters like Jimmy Crute, OSP, and Dustin Jacoby, back when those fighters were arguably more in their primes too. So now he's dropped down to the middleweight division. He's had a tough time getting his hand raised, but look at the level of competition that he's lost to, right? You're talking Sharamegomedov and that one fight of the night. So they went at it. Got subbed by Kevin Holland. That wasn't his best performance, but also losses to Michel Pereira, Kyle Bahailo. I mean, these are high-level fighters, and you cannot overlook in the mix of all those losses the victory that he had in the first round over Chidi Njokuani that has aged very well. The way that he bullied him in that fight, got that first round finish, that was impressive. Knocked out Cody Brundage and Sam Alvey as well, if you want to mention that. So Oleksiejczuk is just 30 years old, right? He had a very early start to his UFC career, and I think that there's still plenty of time for him to put it together and try to get a number next to his name in this division. Sedriques Dumas, you could say that this is a fighter that is overachieved, right? Even dating back to when he got that W on DWCS over Matej Panaz. He was a big underdog in that bout, and he pulled off the first round guillotine choke. He does show to be a fighter that's a little bit more well-rounded than you would think, right? He kind of looks like he would be just more of a striking-based fighter. Got into the fight game a little bit later. But I mean, you look at the Cody Brundage fight, we saw that growth with his grappling. He has victories over fighters like Cody Brundage, Abu Azatar, and Dennis Teolinen as of recently. Those are the fights you're going to talk about. Not really high-level fighters. And in the mix of that, he showed to be vulnerable to being knocked out when he took on Rozaboyev. We know Rozaboyev is a knockout artist, and he's very aggressive. But the way that Rozaboyev was able to find that was a little bit alarming, especially when you understand that Oleksiejczuk's going to come heavy at him with his boxing. I think that there's a real likelihood that Oleksiejczuk can land heavy in this bout, and that's where I'm going to go with my pick here. So another aggressive pick for me, not just saying Oleksiejczuk wins, but saying that he gets a knockout. I'm going with another finish here. I think there should be a high pace to this fight, and I just the way Oleksiejczuk fights, man, he's on the gas pedal, and if Dumas is not ready to go to war like that, he may look for a way out, or he may just get clipped. So I'm going to go with Oleksiejczuk bouncing back with a solid victory here, taking Dumas out. Let's take a look at the odds together. Oleksiejczuk opened up as a minus 205. He's now a minus 195 and did touch as high as a minus 190. So the line kind of going the other way. I could kind of understand why some people are going that way with it, just for the fact that this is a fight that could potentially be a little shaky. Like I said, with the high pace going on, maybe Oleksiejczuk makes a mistake and he gets clipped with the shot. Or maybe Dumas just shows some more growth with his game and you're getting decent odds on the plus side. But I'm actually going to lean more towards the value still being on Oleksiejczuk at a minus 195 line. Maybe if you're coughing up minus 205 when you get to the other side of the minus 200 line, you're kind of pushing it. But I'll say, even with him being a minus 195, I'll say the value is on Oleksiejczuk. All right, my gut is telling me that he just proves to be the superior fighter here. I expect to see a very motivated version of himself. And he's been in there with some high-level fighters. This is a step down, and I think here we see him a step above. Okay, so Let's see how that fight plays out. That should be a fun one. Two OGs squaring off at 145. Darren Elkins is now up in his 40s. Him being 40 is realistically like other fighters being maybe like 36. So take that into consideration because he is built completely different. Not just physically, but specifically mentally. That dude is something else, man. Julian Erosa is 35. Julian Erosa, when you take a look at his losses, right? 8 KO losses out of his 11 losses. This is a fighter that is very prone to being finished. But the thing that stands out to me, when you take a look at those losses, they're a little different compared to when you see Elkins getting a knockout, right? Elkins looks to wear you down, break you down, and kind of TKO stoppage you. Erosa makes these mistakes in there where he ends up getting caught, like when he got caught recently by Padilla with the right hook, or Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy hit him with the head kick, right? You think about Sang-Woo Choi catching him early on in that fight. Okay, he makes a lot of mistakes, specifically early on in his fights where he's caught and he's finished up. Devontae Smith finished him up in just 46 seconds. Julio Arce had one of the rare later knockouts over him in the third round, but he's had issues, even dating back to when he was fighting a cage sport back in 2017. Bobby McIntyre KO'd him in the first round. Take a look, in his first stint in the UFC, he was knocked out in the second round, in the very beginning of the second round by Teruto Ishihara. How about this? The Artem Lobov first round knockout. It took just 1 minute for Lobov to land that KO on the Ultimate Fighter. Okay, I mean, if that doesn't show you one of his major flaws, that is one of his major flaws. But what I like about this matchup for him is that that's not the type of fighter that Elkins is, as I was kind of mentioning before. Elkins, he looks to break you down. I think Erosa should be okay there. I just don't see Elkins hitting him with like a quick twitch type of strike. You know, when things are starting to kick off, I don't see Elkins like slipping and ripping and knocking him out. That's not the type of fight this is going to be. Now, can Elkins break him down? I mean, listen, I'm not going to overlook Elkins breaking down anybody, okay? Because we've seen it throughout the years. He comes in as a dog and you never know who he's going to go out there and upset. And that was dating back to, how about the Mirsad Bektik finish that he had in the third round? That was the greatest comeback that we've ever seen, okay? For you newer fight fans, if you want to go run the tape back on, one of the craziest comebacks you'll ever see. Mirsad Bektik, once upon a time, I know I mentioned him a little bit here and there because back in the day when he was a kid coming out of ATT, he was looked at to be one of the hottest prospects in the game. And he, even around that time, he took that L. In fact, let's just look at that real quick. I think he did hand him his first L. It was his first L, and that completely messed with the head of Bektik. I really believe Bektik was never the same fighter. As you saw, he finished his UFC career up losing 3 fights in a row and retired early on. Bektik was brutalizing Elkins all throughout that fight. Elkins never looked for a way out. His cardio is second to none. And eventually he broke him down and got that finish. There's these stories about Elkins in the gym over at Team Alpha Male where he'll just go to war with one fighter after another. And they'll come in, the fresh bodies will come in and he'll just keep going and he'll get the better of these guys, even some of these Russian fighters that come in. I mean, Elkins is built completely different. And I've learned my lesson. Okay, I've learned my lesson the hard way looking to fade him. Sometimes I've got away with it, like when I've targeted Cub Swanson against him, but a lot of times it's bit me. Okay, and I do want to highlight the Cub Swanson fight because when you have a fighter that has a higher fight IQ, that has a good amount of experience and who has some grappling abilities, but then can keep the fight standing and he could just be a little bit of a step ahead of Elkins, that's where Elkins runs into trouble. Okay, and that's what we saw in the Swanson fight. You saw it in the Nate Landwehr fight, right? Nate has those wrestling abilities. He was able to keep the fight standing and get the better of that bloody war. I think that Erosa should be able to keep distance in this fight, should be able to keep it standing long enough where you could see him use that reach advantage and that tricky type of striking that he possesses. And let's not completely overlook the submission ability that he has. Out of his 30 victories, 14 of them coming by way of sub. And he's gone out there and he subbed some respectable fighters. He's very tricky with his sub game. And I don't think it's even out of the realm that he could sub Elkins, although I wouldn't favor that happening because Elkins shows to be so hard to sub, man. I've seen him locked in very deep and he just never looks for a way out. He always seems to just pop his head out. And I'm going to say he avoids being subbed. If we see a finish in this fight, it's more realistically going to be by Erosa just putting some serious damage on Elkins. All right. You like the pun there? And maybe getting a TKO type of stoppage. Okay. Like we saw in the Swanson fight. And I'm not going to pick a finish there though. I'm going to say this fight makes it to the final bell. And as we take a look at the betting odds here, as Erosa's a minus 460 and he opened up as a minus 410, I am absolutely not in agreement with this line. when you have a fighter like Elkins that's going to dig deep and push this fight to the deep waters, you just never know how things are going to shake out, especially when you have a fighter like Erosa that makes mistakes at times. Okay, and this fight can go anywhere, man. This fight can get wild. Why in the hell would you want to be coughing up almost 5-1 on Erosa here? Okay, you're looking at Elkins' age. He's 40. I already explained to you guys, his 40 is not your typical 40. Okay, his cardio is going to be phenomenal. And the dude is laced up differently. Okay, I mean, God made him differently. Okay, I don't know what's going on inside his cranium and his skull. I mean, that guy, dude, Elkins should have been on the battlefield. The number 15th ranked featherweight, Dan Ige, is taking on Sean Woodson. Woodson looking to finally get a number next to his name. I do believe if he prevails here, he will be ranked. Okay, what an interesting character Sean Woodson is. He brings in a massive frame to this division. I love the volume that he pushes. He has high-level boxing. All right, he is a tough puzzle to solve when you're in there. Now, Dan Ige, all right, if you're backing Dan Ige here, let's cut to the chase. You're kind of hoping that Ige is going to crack Woodson with the big shot. We saw what Ige just did to Murphy in his last fight, hurt him with the big shot early on in that fight, knocked out Andre Feely as of recently. We know Ige possesses big power in his hands. When you take a look at when Woodson's going through adversity in his fights, it's when he makes that one little defensive mistake and he gets caught with the big strike. Because besides that, he's the fighter that's out voluming his opponent. He's pushing the pace on them, and he's winning round after round. All right, you take a look at the Luis Saldana fight. That fight ended up being a draw after he got 10-8'd in the first round, right? Okay, then he took that fight back over in the later rounds, though, showing the resilience that he has. So he is somewhat mentally tough. You think about the Erosa fight, I think that he was caught with the big strike before he was eventually caught in that Darce choke. And a couple of other these victories here, at little brief moments and times, he was hit with some big strikes. So Ige is going to have to land that one big strike, because if he doesn't, I have a hard time seeing him win round to round against Woodson. Woodson is very hard to take down with that huge frame. So far, he's posted an 84% takedown defensive ratio in the UFC. And you take a look at the volume that he's pushing, man, landing 5.66 strikes per minute compared to Ige's 3.66. I mean, I'm telling you guys, if this fight goes to the judges' scorecards, I feel very confident that Woodson wins this fight. And it's not out of the realm that Woodson can get a finish either. I mean, he did just get a knockout over Fernando Padilla in the first round in his last fight, but that's not really the type of fighter that he is. Even if he's pushing the pace and he's really comboing up Ige, Ige has never been finished, let alone knocked out. He's never been subbed. I mean, he's so durable. I don't see that happening, but I do see Woodson winning a unanimous decision. I could easily see him solidifying 2 rounds. I could see him solidifying every single round, realistically. It just comes down to him not being finished in this fight. All right, maybe Ige can get away with landing more damaging strikes in one round and sneak a round off, but I just have a tough time seeing him winning this fight throughout. Okay, because is he going to be able to consistently get this fight down to the mat? I don't believe so. And I mean, the knockout, it's not unrealistic, but I'm going to say it doesn't happen. I'm going to go against him landing that big power shot. I've been backing Sean Woodson for some time. He constantly comes through for me. I'm not going to turn my back on him here. Okay, he's put a lot of money in my pocket. He opened up as a plus 112 underdog, and now he is the favorite, as he is currently a minus 128 favorite. We see action coming in on him. The line is somewhat surprising to me, but at the same time, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not, I guess, because people love them some Ige. All right, he hopped off the couch for that fight against Diego Lopes and looked pretty good in that one. In fact, he looked damn good for taking that fight on as short notice as he did. Although you have to note that he was training for a fight that was about to take place anyway, so he was kind of in fight shape. I think people put a little bit too much merit in people just being ready to scrap in the cage. If they're already training for a date, I mean, if you guys know how it goes, man, if you're in the gym, I mean, you're grinding, you're putting in that work day to day, so you got to be ready to scrap, pretty much at any time around your scheduled date. I mean, I do respect it, though. I respect it, but not enough for me to pick Ige here. Give me Sean Woodson to win this fight via unanimous decision. We got a 16-year age gap in this matchup here between Chase Hooper and Jim Miller. You guys know I love this fight right here. I'm a long time Jim Miller fan, and Chase Hooper has quickly grown on me. Okay, and I've been very well versed with who Chase Hooper is, even before he fought on Dana White's Contender Series way back in the day when he dug deep and came back and took that W there when he was just a young kid. All right, so I've known about him for a long time, but I wasn't always the biggest believer I felt that he was so one-dimensional that he wasn't going to be able to cut it as he started to fight the best fighters in the world in the UFC. Okay, because I've always been very high on his BJJ. I know he's very talented there. Okay, but it was his striking and his physicality that I was really questioning. And what I probably overlooked was the fact that he was so young. Okay, we were talking about a 21, 22-year-old Chase Hooper. Give the kid some time. Look at him now. Okay, he's putting on some muscle mass. His striking has evolved very much. He has the work ethic. He surrounds himself with good people. You see him training with Ben Askren, working on his wrestling. You see him putting in work with Stephen Thompson, getting in work with his striking. And I know he puts it out on social media kind of like it's a joke with the different personalities and all that, but it's actually, it's real. Okay, when you're out there training with legends like that are specialist fighters in those disciplines and they're teaching you the ins and outs, yeah, you probably should expect to see some growth. That's what we're seeing. Remember, the Slava Borishev victory that he had, where he hit him with the Darce choke, it wasn't the submission that was impressive there. He dropped Slava, okay, with his hands in the beginning portion of that fight. He hurt Slava. Slava was really never himself. So we're seeing the development from his striking. He just went out there and ran through Clay Guida, and we're seeing his striking coming around. And that's dangerous when you take into consideration his frame, right? He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage here. If he continues to land fully extended, at range, he's going to give a lot of fighters problems in this division. Okay, as his striking fully rounds out, he'll have that BJJ in his back pocket. Both these fighters are black belts in BJJ, but I think that Hooper is the fighter that's really going to get the better in those types of scrambles and in those situations. Okay, I mean, I know that Jim can hang with anybody down there, but Hooper is he's huge. He has these long limbs. I think he'll just be a giant daddy long leg spider just engulfing Miller down there, and I expect him to get the better of those exchanges. We'll see how that plays out, but nothing but respect towards Miller's way. I mean, he just got dominated by Bobby Green on that UFC 300 card. Look how he bounces back, goes out there, gets the finish over Damon Jackson. I expect to see something a little similar to that Jim Miller versus King Green fight. Maybe we won't see the same exact output from Hooper. We won't see him like peppering Miller up like crazy, busting him up. That's one thing that Green does pretty well if you play that type of fight with him. But I do expect that Hooper could actually land more damaging strikes. Maybe not with the same volume, even though his numbers are solid when you look at them overall. I don't think that he'll land as much, but he could land some very damaging strikes that put Miller in a situation where he could potentially be finished. Okay. And you know what? I mean, Hooper's going out there and he's finishing fights right now. And that's really what he's been doing. I'm going to say that he does get a finish in this fight. I'm going to say that Miller gets caught with the sub. I'm going to say he kind of gets hurt and then eventually subbed. And that's saying a lot because as we're scrolling down, he hasn't been submitted since 2018, and it was against Charles Oliveira. Okay, to put things into consideration. That's why I wanted to run that back real quick to look at that, because I know he hasn't been subbed in a long time. But I'm going to say that Hooper hurts him enough and puts him in a situation where he kind of gives in and he's caught in a sub. All right, because Hooper is so dangerous there, and he'll be looking good in here. So let's take a look at what the line is. Oh my God, take a look at this. Hooper is currently a minus 625 favorite. Opened up as a minus 410. Big action coming in on him. People are liking what they're seeing from him. They're seeing the physicality and the maturity of Hooper developing, and I get it. Okay, I get it enough that I'm picking him to win this fight, but also for him to get the finish. All right, so we're making a statement there, and to be one of the very few fighters that will get a sub over Miller. Take a look. 56 professional fights, and he's only been subbed in 3 of them. All right, so we're calling a bold shot right there. Hey guys, just want to say real quick, if you're not following me in IG, you're slipping up. I want to shout out a new little segment that we do every Sunday. We do the Sunday meme dump, and that's where I put together a bunch of funny memes that are relative to the fight card that just took place the night before, right? So I put it out Sunday, and we just make some funny memes in regards to all the fights that take place on the prior fight card, and it's really starting to take off. This last one that I did, I got the fighters hitting up the comment section, even when I'm making fun of them. Drew Dober is up in the comment section laughing. We had about over 2,000 shares on that Sunday dump episode, man. And all these fighters are liking it. Vanessa Demopoulos, a couple of different fighters are all hitting it up. So make sure you guys are checking in with me for the Sunday dump every Saturday. Make sure you're following me on IG at MMA Fortune Teller. This is a massive fight for the future of the women's strawweight division. We got the number 3 ranked Virna Jandiroba, who, if she gets a win here, she would take her winning streak to 5, all right? And she arguably would be next to be fighting for the belt, all right? Xiaonan, who just recently fought for the belt against Weili Zhang. Of course, she came up short, started off hot in that first round, but then was drowned as the fight progressed. Xiaonan has already bounced back with the victory. She went out there, defeated Tabitha Ricci. That's a respectable victory. Yan were to win this fight, even though she's ranked higher than Jandiroba, I think that it wouldn't be as much of a lock for her to be fighting for the belt next, just based on the fact she just fought Weili and she was dominated the way she was. Whereas Jandiroba would be that new matchup that everyone likes to see. When you're talking about a championship fight, people don't always want to see a rematch, especially when it was one-sided. And also, let me just mention the rumors of Zhang potentially going up to the flyweight division to take on some of the best up there. I mean, there's rumors of her taking on Shevchenko, this and that. I mean, there's a lot going on in that division too. But at the end of the day, I think that even if Zhang did that, she would still come back and be ready to defend her belt. So, I mean, this really is kind of like a number one contender spot, but specifically for Jandiroba, who is just looking like a woman's Damian Maia. Okay, she gets her hands on you. She drowns you. She gets you down to the mat. She's very high level with her BJJ. Not only can she sub you like she did against Amanda Lemos, she's caught her in that armbar, but she can dominate you and control you down on the mat. Okay, she has such a tight grasp when she gets a hold of you. She leaves not an inch of space, and good luck getting back up to your feet. Okay, now where she lacks is definitely with her striking, but as you look to land on her, it's just so hard because she kind of zombies through it, and she gets a hold of you. She'll hit you with the judo throw. She'll get the fight down to the mat one way or another, and that's a scary aspect of this fight for Yan, because Yan, even though she had that takedown against Weili Zhang in the first round, then as that fight progressed, man, she just really had a tough time creating space, and she was on her back for the majority of that fight. So, I mean, that's an issue there for her. There's no question about it. This is a striker versus grappling matchup. Okay, that's exactly what this fight is. I mean, let's cut to the chase here. Is Yan going to be able to create that space so she can land those damaging shots? I mean, if she keeps this fight standing, she definitely outpoints Jandiroba. I think that she is very live to also get a knockout. If she creates that space and she keeps it standing long enough, she's going to have ample opportunities to really hurt Jandiroba. I know Jandiroba's never been knocked out in 24 professional fights, but she's lacking very much defensively. We've seen her teed off on. Okay, she just kind of pushes through it typically. And I'm so back and forth with where I want to go with my pick here, because I could see Jandiroba pushing through, getting those takedowns and having success there. But, you know, I typically feel that the judges, as of recently, are favoring the damage. Right over the past year or two, I've been screaming from the rooftops how damage is everything, even though we had a couple fight cards where then they flipped the script on us and all of a sudden they're giving a lot of points and giving a lot of attention to the grappling success too, just even simple takedowns. I'm still going to favor damage being key here, and that's going to lead me to siding with Yan, because you also know Yan has never been sub. So even if she's taken down, if she can even squeak back up to her feet, land some damaging strikes, or start the round off landing damaging strikes, I could see that being a deciding factor here. And this is a tough one. Okay, this is really a tough one, but I'm going to side with the striker over the grappler in this matchup here. Yan has been training extensively with Team Alpha Male throughout the past couple of years, and I know that she's working hard on her grappling and her wrestling and her wrestling defense, and I will side with her. Now, she opened up as a plus 158 underdog. We're seeing action coming in her. She's now a plus 133, so we're seeing the line trend more towards being even, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the time this fight takes place, if that's exactly what we see, with this fight being more of a pick'em type of fight, where you feel like she can keep this fight standing long enough or create space and get back up to her feet and just avoid being subbed and score. Give me Yan to win a close decision, with those damaging strikes being just enough for her to edge out those rounds. I'll tell you what, this is probably my most anticipated fight on the card. All right, guys, you hit the comment section up and tell me if I'm tripping on this, because this is the fight that just really has me getting up. Of course, I can't wait to see Pitbull versus Yair Rodriguez, or Chandler versus Pimblett, Volkanovski versus Lopes, all these great fights that we're about to get to in a second. But this is a little different, man. There's kind of like some bad blood going into it. Bryce Mitchell takes on Gene Silva, And of course, Gene Silva is a huge favorite. Everyone's saying that Gene Silva is going to go out there and just dominate Mitchell and knock him out. And that very well could be the case. But let's understand that Gene Silva has not been tested with his grappling at all. You take a look at his resume specifically since working with the UFC, right? The Kevin Vallejos victory that he had on Dana White's Contender Series. Vallejos is an absolute stud, right? And that's a fight that we could see ran back in the near future or down the line sooner than later. Okay, but Vallejos is a striker. Okay, he's a striker. Weston Wilson, one of the kings of Giraffe Syndrome, one of the disciples of Stephen Thompson. He's a kickboxer. Charles Jourdain has some BJJ skills, but no type of wrestling, and he's more of a striking-based fighter. Drew Dober, you know he has absolutely zero grappling. Melsik Bagdasaryan is a kickboxer, a very inactive and probably an overrated fighter when you really take a look at what he ended up being. Absolutely none of those fighters can push the pace and grapple like a Bryce Mitchell. Okay, he's an absolute stud at doing that. You saw what he just did to Kron Gracie, which take that one for what you will, because Gracie should have never been fighting in the UFC. Okay, no disrespect, but he's just not that type of fighter. Okay, but give credit to Mitchell for going out there, smashing him up, finishing him. But you take a look at what he did against Dan Ige, okay, dominating the grappling there. He's done it to multiple fighters. Okay, Edson Barbosa, Andre Fili. I mean, this is a fighter that's went out there, pulled off the twister, did that to Matt Sales. And Matt Sales, of course, more of a one-dimensional boxing type of fighter, but you don't see the twister pulled off very often. And I mean, I truly believe that there is a realistic possibility, just a little bit more realistic than some people are giving it credit to, that Mitchell can go out here and have success getting this fight to the mat, because that's what he does very well. Okay, he's very much above average with that aspect of his game. And we got to see how Silva looks. Now, I'll tell you what, I think that Silva most likely will pass that test because he's a freak of nature. Okay, he passes the eyeball test when I'm looking at him. He's the type of fighter that I'll give credit to with certain aspects of his game, even though we haven't even seen it extensively. All right, this is a fighter that may show to have amazing jiu-jitsu, even though what he's looking to do is keep the fight standing, create space, and knock you out, right? He's looking to dap you up, give you high fives, and then start you, as we saw him just do to Melsik Bagdasaryan, right? Knocked out Drew Dober, Jourdain, all those guys I was just talking about, knocked them all out, okay, besides Vallejos, who's a beast. What I actually see Silva doing to Mitchell in this matchup is doing something that was very similar to what Ilia Topuria did. Okay, a very high-level fighter, but I think that Silva has some of that same potential. You know, he hasn't proven it yet. He hasn't proven to be near the level of a Topuria, which time will tell. Maybe he does eventually be one of the kingpins of the fight game. I mean, he has that raw ability, but I could see Silva stuffing takedowns or even reversing some of the desperate takedown attempts from Mitchell and getting on top of Mitchell and smashing him up down in the mat and eventually getting Mitchell to wilt. And maybe he sets up a sub, maybe an arm triangle sub, something like that. Something similar to what Topuria did, where just Mitchell knows he's out of it after he's getting smashed with ground and pound. Or we see Gene hop back up to his feet and we see a very battered Mitchell standing back up and eventually just getting crushed with more shots to the point that he gets knocked out. Let's not overlook or forget to mention the Josh Emmett KO loss that he recently took before the bounce back victory. I mean, took one of the most damaging knockouts that we've ever seen in the fight game. So you also still have to wonder where his brain's at. All right. And speaking of his brain, I mean, I'll just quickly mention when we're talking Bryce Mitchell, I'm a fan of his. I'll be rooting for Bryce Mitchell in this fight. I'll let you guys know right off the rip, man. Gene Silva, I like what I'm seeing from him, but I thought that it was a little cringy the way that he held himself in that press conference, coming out with the globe and all that. Like, I get it. Mitchell's out there. Some things I agree with him on, some things I don't. How about that? Okay. I think that he's not as dumb as a lot of you guys try to paint him to be. Okay. If you don't really do your own homework, I'm not saying the earth is flat. I'm not saying I agree with him on any of that. And some of the stuff he says is way out there, but there's also things that he mentions that are spot on that a lot of the masses just don't understand. They really haven't done their own research, and or they're just too scared to say certain things. And there's certain things that he's talked about where you actually say he's a little bit brighter than people try to give him credit for. Okay. People just get fed a certain narrative for whatever reason. And then people just go along like sheep, like, oh yeah, he's a complete dunce for saying this and that. You know what I mean? Open up your own mind, do your own research. How about that? If you really don't know too much about a certain topic, then don't just, chalk it up to being, oh, this guy's crazy. Well, if you don't know, maybe you're just one of those those people. You know what I mean? And I'll take a second to say this, man. If you guys know what I'm talking about, the general population, I hate to be that type of guy to bring this up, man, are sheep, and they just kind of go along with things. They don't use their own brain, and they're very blind to things that are right in front of their faces. And I'm not talking about any flat earth type stuff here, all right, to be clear. So you guys can use your own imagination. I mean, Mitchell's talked about a lot of topics. I'm just saying that he's not wrong about everything that he mentions. And some things he mentions, he's spot on. And some things he mentions, he's a little warped in the mind. He's a little crazy. So you guys can guess what I'm talking about. Take it for what you will anyway. And I don't really like to dive too much into that stuff here. Silva is a minus 340 favorite in this spot. What do I think about this line? I think it's about spot on. How about that? I think it's about spot on, okay? I think that Silva is deserving of being a hefty favorite here. I know you could look at it from an alternative aspect, like, hey, what happens if Mitchell has success with his grappling? Is the value on the dog here? I'm leaning way more towards Silva having success, stuffing those takedowns, and brutalizing Mitchell. Okay, it's not out of the realm that Mitchell can have success, but I think an accurate line is right about where it is. So if you want to take a shot on the dog, you're catching him almost around 3-1 odds, almost at plus 300. But I would even favor Silva with the minus 340 line. I would, and I think it would be getting out of hand once it starts to touch the minus 400 range, which I could actually see happening. I'm interested to see where this line goes. I think the closer to the fight, I think we'll start to see Silva really start to get hammered. But we'll see how that goes. But I was not a big fan about the antics from Gene Silva at the press conference. I think that it was a little bit forced, a little goofy. It's like he was trying to do a little bit of a Conor McGregor impression in his own way, but like Conor McGregor's smooth with it. He's a little bit more of a G. Silva's a little bit awkward. And I don't know. It was just a little weird with him. And he was dominating the conversation, not giving him a second to talk and all that. And I kind of like the way that Mitchell was just calm, cool, and collected. And I think he has a lot of confidence in himself. But stylistically, there should be a high pace to this fight with Mitchell looking to even press the action to get a takedown. I think that Silva is going to get a first round knockout. We got the UFC debut of Patricio Pitbull. You guys know I'm very excited for this. I've been wanting to see how he would fare against the elite of the UFC's featherweight division for a very long time. Now, I'm not necessarily sure Yair Rodriguez is the elite of this division, but Pitbull is now 37 years old, nearing 38, and he comes into this fight 1-2 in his last 3 matches. Okay, so excellent matchmaking by the UFC. Yair is exciting too. I mean, this has all the makings of being a very exciting fight, but there's a lot of questions that need to be answered for us to kind of see what's going to be going on in the near future for Pitbull. All right, you take a look at those 2 losses that he took. Sergio Pettis, round to round, he was a step behind. The questionable loss that he took was the L that he took to Chihiro Suzuki, where he was knocked out in the first round. That took place over in Ryzen. It was kind of like that cross promotion thing, and there was a high pace to that fight as it lasted. He got clipped with the shot, and I mean, it could happen to the best of them, but that was kind of looking to be the start of the decline of this legend who was getting up there in age. But then take a look at the bounce back performance that he had against Jeremy Kennedy. Okay. That fight is on YouTube. You can pull the full fight up. I thought he looked very good in it. He was very patient. He was weathering the storm, looking to land the damaging strikes. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, he put it on Kennedy in the 3rd round there and brutalized him, finished him up with knees, finished him up against the cage. And Kennedy is an underrated tough fighter that was once a hot prospect when he was young in the UFC. He departed and has had a lot of success outside of the octagon. So that was a great bounce back victory for Pitbull. I mean, you want to highlight some of the bigger victories he had when he was more towards his prime. I mean, this is a fighter that sits in the pocket. He's so measured and he will flatline you. You think about finishes that he had over Emmanuel Sanchez, the knockout over Pedro Carvalho. That was a fight where there was a lot of bad blood going into it. Victory over Juan Archuleta. The first round knockout over Michael Chandler, which was a redemption fight for his brother, right? For what Chandler did to his brother. Chandler went out there, starched his brother Patricio in the first round and was kind of acting up after the finish. And you know Patricio had redemption on his mind. I mean, that was a legendary victory for him, taking out a legend like Chandler. And these were the names that were at the top of the food chain that he was going out there and defeating. When you're talking Adam Borges, AJ McKee Jr., Emmanuel Sanchez, Pedro Carvalho, Juan Archuleta, Michael Chandler, Emmanuel Sanchez, Daniel Weichel, Daniel Strauss, Henry Corrales. I mean, you go all the way back to the early times of Bellator, which is really when I was even a bigger Bellator fan. I mean, I watched Bellator all throughout it, but I was a huge Bellator dude back in 2012, 13, 14, 15. I mean, so I've been watching him from the very beginning when he was going out there, defeating Pat Curran, Justin Wilcox, Diego Nunez, right? Strauss, he had multiple victories over Daniel Strauss. Actually, Strauss was a friend of mine, was part of a little motorcycle crew down in South Florida. And Strauss actually got hurt in a motorcycle accident, never ended up being the same fighter that he once was, but he was talented, man. You talk about Wilson Hayes, Georgi Karakanian. I mean, these are the who's who over on the Bellator scene, and he went out there and he was going out there handling those dudes, all right? So you can only go out there and defeat what's thrown your way, okay? So we never got to see him matched up with the most elite in the UFC. He's 37, but we'll get a little glimpse of maybe how it would have looked. We're going to see how everything plays out here, but to this matchup, I like the fact that Pitbull generally gets going as the fight moves on. He's a fighter that will really dig deep, and when you talk Yair Rodriguez, he's a fighter that kind of fizzles as the fight goes on. I mean, look at his last fight against Brian Ortega, which was a rematch to an extent, right? Ortega had that shoulder injury. Yair looked good for as long as that first fight took place. But in retrospect, I'm not so sure that if there was no shoulder injury, that Ortega wasn't going to just take that fight over as it progressed, because that's exactly what he did in the rematch. I mean, as the time was clicking, I mean, Ortega was the fighter that knew he was going to dominate and eventually get a finish. And it was Yair that looked to be questioning himself, right? It's almost like he knew he was en route to wilting. Volkanovski finished him up in the third round. You take a look at some of the earlier fights in his career. I mean, Frankie Edgar dominated him. And that was back in 2017. He was a much more limited fighter with his grappling. But, you know, his wrestling, I don't really know how much his wrestling has developed. His jiu-jitsu has gotten better and better. He looked good in the Josh Emmett fight. As that fight went down to the mat, I mean, he was really moving well down there. But Patricio Pitbull is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I could see him potentially having success if it goes down there. I could see him sitting in Yair's guard and landing some damage. Although I do expect this fight to stay standing for the most part. I expect this to be a kickboxing match. I think where Yair could be dangerous is in the early portion of this fight. Okay, if they start slinging it, maybe we see something similar to what happened in one of Pitbull's most recent loss. Okay, that loss we talked about over in Ryzen where he got clipped. Yair can hit you with the kitchen sink. He can club you with his shin. He can hit you with the spinning elbow. He can hit you with a bunch of wild stuff there. But as this fight progresses, I do believe that Pitbull should take it over. And do not overlook how dangerous Pitbull is in the early portion of the fight as well. Okay, he's extremely measured. We referenced that Michael Chandler KO victory that he had. I mean, he sees things in slow motion, and he's very patient, and he'll kind of sit there and just try to be an inch out of reach where he can counter you. Okay, so if Yair misses on something that he's looking to land big, there's no question that Pitbull can counter him and not only finish him, but maybe even flatline him. I mean, he's dangerous, okay? And even if he hurts you, hence the name Pitbull, I mean, that's the type of way he'll finish you up, okay? He'll just unravel an onslaught on you. I'll reference once again the Kennedy victory where he put him up against the cage and was just hitting him with such a diverse attack, throwing the knees, the elbows, working the body. I mean, he'll hit you everywhere. He'll hit you with the kitchen sink as well. He'll put the volume on you. I think you guys know where I'm going with for this one. I'm going to once again take the Bellator debutant, which you guys, if you haven't noticed, there's a trend, right? These Bellator fighters come in to these fights and they're the underdogs. You think about MVP, you think about Michael Chandler, okay? How did they fare in both of those fights when they were the dogs, okay? Michael Chandler went out there, knocked out Dan Hooker. You take a look at what MVP did to Kevin Holland. If my memory suits me well, that was his debut, I believe, right? Went out there and was the dog, capitalized, put money in our pocket. I think that the dog is being overlooked here once again. People just assume that since he's a Bellator fighter, he's not on the same level, where they don't really understand what they're looking into here. This is a high-level fighter. At the very least, I think that this is a fight that should be closer to even odds. Okay, so the value is on the dog here, and I say that Pitbull lands a knockout in his UFC debut, and do not overlook how motivated he is for this opportunity. He has known that the UFC is the top of the food chain in the fight game. Okay, don't think for a second he doesn't understand that. This is his time to prove that everything that he was doing over in Bellator was warranted. So he's going to be extremely motivated. Even a 37-year-old version of himself, he's going to be probably in as good of a shape as we've seen him in a long time. All right, give me Pitbull to get a third round finish, a late finish, maybe an end of a second round, third round finish. Two quick side notes. If anybody out there is a polished video editor that makes solid YouTube intros, okay, I'm looking for a nice little quick intro video to the channel here. If you are capable and you're interested, reach out to me. I got my email and all that popping up periodically throughout the video. You could shoot me a DM on Instagram. And also, if anybody wants to be sponsored in my video, I have an open slate. Okay, guys, if anybody wants to have their small business, if it's MMA related or any type of thing, if it's food, anything that you sell online, so if you feel it'd be beneficial to you to be sponsored in the video, reach out to me. Maybe we could work something out. Big action taking place at 205 here. Nikita Krylov taking on Dominic Reyes. We got ranked action. And I'll tell you why this fight's very important, right? All signs are pointing towards Alex Pereira getting an immediate rematch at his title against Magomed Ankalaev. The only fighter that you could really say that's really barking up the tree for a title shot, in my opinion, is Jiří Procházka, coming off that great bounce back victory against Jamal Hill. It depends who the champion will be, right? I mean, Procházka versus Ankalaev would be a fun fight. We haven't been able to see that take place just yet. All right, now a rematch with Procházka and Pereira, slight chance that's going to happen. We've seen that play out twice. Carlos Ulberg just had another victory, but I thought he probably lost that fight to Jan Blachowicz, and I didn't think it was that impressive of a performance. Now, the reason why I'm kind of highlighting what's going on towards the top of this division is because Nikita Krylov is some of that new blood that this division is really has been looking for. Okay, we haven't seen Krylov matched up with some of these elite fighters. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. If he were to win here, he'd be in a 4-fight winning streak, coming off W's against Alexander Gustafsson, Volkan Ozdemir. I put a respect on that one. Ryan Spann, and this would be a big one for him here. I would love to see Krylov get a W here and then take on a Jiří Procházka. I mean, that would be a fun fight. The winner of that should be fighting for the belt next. I mean, I know I'm completely looking over Ulberg, but that little pitter-patter type style that he was doing, man, I think that he loses a little bit of respect. You can keep an eye on some other fighters here. But to this matchup, Krylov is a fighter that I've had my eyes on from the very beginning. I mean, he made his UFC debut, I think, when he was like 21 years old, and he went through some early adversity. What I liked about him as the UFC signed him is that he had that very light-footed karate type style, and you don't typically see that in the light heavyweight division, at least back then. I mean, of course, we had Lyoto Machida, but a lot of the light heavyweight fighters were a little bit more heavy and clunky. This was a fighter that showed high-level striking, okay? And we saw that on display against Walt Harris, okay? But he did go 1-2 in his first 3 fights, was submitted by OSP, was knocked out by Soa Palehi, all right? But then he started to put it together, and then unfortunately, all right, he takes 1 L against Misha Serkinov, who is a high-level grappler, was a little bit more mature at the time, and the UFC parted ways with him. I remember being very upset at the time because he was so young as he was putting on this winning streak together. He was in his early 20s, and I'm like, this is a dude that could potentially fight for the belt one day. All right. And luckily enough, the UFC did re-sign him. He's had some ups and downs, but fighting elite fighters. Had that mistake against Paul Craig. That's a fight that he wins 90 out of 100 times, if not more. Got caught in the triangle, made a mistake to go down to the mat when he was hurting Craig on the feet. All right. But he learned from that mistake. He's on this 3-fight winning streak. He's just 32 years old. And I think that he's a dangerous man in this division. I really do. I think he's a dangerous man. Dominic Reyes has started to put it back together, but it's hard for me to overlook that 4-fight losing skid, really a 3-fight losing skid, if you will. A lot of people thought that he defeated John Jones. How quickly a lot of people forget about that fight, but that was very competitive. But the 3 knockouts in a row that he took to Blachowicz, Procházka, and Ryan Spann, those were very questionable performances, and I don't think that that's something that, I don't think that that's a page that he just completely turned, okay? When you showed the chin issues that he's had in those fights, like when he's getting dropped with a jab by Ryan Spann, if you don't think that if Krylov touches him with a solid strike that he's not going to get flatlined or wobbled and finished up, you're sadly mistaken, okay? I think that we'll see those type of repeat performances happen once again, all right? If he's very lucky, maybe he'll pull off his Andrei Arlovsky. If you guys remember, Arlovsky was getting knocked out over and over, and all of a sudden he changed some things up, and then he It was almost impossible to be finished towards the latter half of his career. That's not the norm, though. Okay, that's not the norm. I'm going to say that we see Reyes knocked out in brutal fashion here in the next year, one way or another. And I'm actually going to say it starts in this fight. I'm going to say he doesn't make it to the final bell against Krylov. I know he looked good against Anthony Smith and Dustin Jacoby for the most part. I mean, he got finishes. He went through a little bit of turbulence in some of those fights, but he did prevail. I think that Krylov is on another level than those fighters, specifically an aged Anthony Smith. I like Nikita Krylov to get his hand raised here. All right, he's going to be light-footed. He's going to be quick with his striking. He's going to touch Reyes, and we're going to see if Reyes' durability holds up. And I'm going to say it doesn't. All right, and Reyes isn't that grappling threat like a Paul Craig where he could pull off a tricky and crafty sub. We're not worried about that, and I'm not really worried about Reyes mixing it up, getting a takedown, working ground and pound. I'm not worried about that. This should be a stand-up fight. I like the more polished and fluid kickboxer, and Krylov, and I will take him to get a knockout. You take a look at the ratio here. Krylov has a very efficient ratio, doesn't get touched often, only absorbing 2.47 strikes per minute. Should be able to avoid any of the big damage from Reyes, which Reyes is a knockout artist. 9 knockouts out of his 14 victories. Krylov just knocked out once. That's when he was a young kid. We talked about that loss that he took in his first fight in the UFC, first or second fight in the UFC. So he's matured so much. And give me Krylov to get the knockout finish. Let's take a look at the odds and see what we're talking about for this one. This should be a good one. Krylov is a -190, exactly where I expected the line to be for this fight as I was diving into it. I had that intuition. Krylov tends to be right around a -175 to a -180. You can catch him there typically, and here it is once again. Do I see value on it? I kind of do. I have confidence in him. I'm not putting as much faith in to Dominic Reyes starting to have this resurgence, okay, because of those 2 wins he just had. I'm not. He's dangerous. This is the light heavyweight division. You never know what's going to happen, but Krylov has proven to be durable and tough, and he should be the superior fighter minute to minute, and he's way more live to land that KO. So give me Krylov to finish this fight and get that knockout. Now, this is where things got very interesting for me. When we're talking about the co-main event and main event bouts, initially I was very back and forth with who I had winning them. All right, digging into some fight tape, doing my research. I will tell you this, as I'm recording this right now, I have solidified my picks. I feel comfortable with my picks. We're going to get to them here in a second. Chandler taking on Paddy Pimblett. What stands out to me in this matchup is the fact that Chandler is now 38 years old. We know what Conor McGregor recently did to him, kind of playing puppet master, playing with his career, wasting 2 years of a very pivotal time in Michael Chandler's fight career, right? Because when you get to your mid-30s, your late 30s, wasting 2 years, I mean, that's an issue there. It wasn't really right what McGregor did to him. He finally made that return bout to the cage, took on Charles Oliveira. He was a clear step behind. There were some fun moments in the fight. You think about when he picked Charles up and dropped to his back and whatnot, but let's be clear, he was a step behind throughout that fight. It was the 5th round. I think he did a little bit of damage. He was looking to try to get a finish there, but it wasn't happening. Chandler, even though he's 38 years old, we understand he's a beast of a man. We know he'll come in great shape and all that. I understand that. But when you start to creep up to your 40s in this division, your reaction time, your durability, and things of those sort are going to take a step back. Okay. And then when you're talking about Paddy Pimblett, you're talking about a fighter who's going to be fighting for the first time in his 30s. All right. We're going to see the best version of himself. Yeah, he pulled off the magic once again in his last fight, submitted Bobby Green in the first round as Bobby Green made a horrific decision to shoot that takedown. All right. I mean, the recipe should have been to keep that fight standing and to test Paddy's striking. And that's something that I still want to see more of. And I'm interested to see how Chandler and Paddy are going to fare in a striking type of fight. But now more time is ticking by. Paddy Pimblett's getting better and better. He's sharpening up his striking. We know his jiu-jitsu is his real strength. And I do believe that could be pivotal in this matchup. I could see Paddy having success down in the mat, similarly to how Charles had success or how Poirier had success as he sunk in that rear naked choke. I mean, Paddy's big and his jiu-jitsu sharp, man. I'm telling you guys, it's sharp. Yeah, when I think about him and bouts like the Luigi Vendramini match that was in his UFC debut, all right, he's getting tagged up and it looks like his defense is lacking in a major way. Now, that fight was 4 years ago, all right? He was much younger, and at the end of the day, he did come back and get his own finish in that fight. So since then, It's been looking great for him. Besides the Jared Gordon fight, right? A lot of people thought that he lost that fight, including myself. It was close, but Gordon probably should have got the nod there. That's what the big blemish on his resume. But even that fight was 3 years ago. He was 27 at the time, and he has had a lot of time to sharpen things up. Now, when this fight was announced to be a 5-rounder, my initial feeling was that that would favor Chandler. And I'm not saying that I've changed my mind on that, but I'm not as sure about that the more I dove into it. I mean, Chandler has crazy cardio. He's gone to those championship rounds many times before, but Paddy's actually been there a couple times as well, right? He was the Cage Warriors champion. He's been to those championship rounds. And when you actually look at fights that Chandler goes to those championship rounds, it's not really always good for him. You look at the Oliveira fight, the last one that he just had there, even though he did have success late in that fight. But you also look at matches that he had, like both the fights that he fought Will Brooks in, that he took L's in, which Will Brooks is the most suspect performances that he's ever had, was those matches against Will Brooks. For whatever reason, he was a step behind Will Brooks, who never really proved to be that good of a fighter. And don't get me started on Brooks. I don't want to bore you with the repetitive stories when I bumped into him at the local bar. But, I mean, he should have never been taking those L's there. He lost a rematch to Eddie Alvarez. That went 25 minutes, even though, of course, he won the first bout with Eddie Alvarez when he became the champion. He was a young stud. Saw that fight live. I still believe that's probably the greatest fight in Bellator history. He did get a finish there in the 4th round when he sunk in that rear naked choke. But typically, I wouldn't say it's all success for him in the championship rounds, okay? And I could see this fight getting a little ugly late for him as well, okay? If he struggles with his grappling and Paddy gets on top of him with that big body using his jiu-jitsu, I mean, I don't think that it's unrealistic that Paddy can get a late submission in this fight. I think that Paddy's going to be motivated and ready to go here, man. He kind of gets joked about with his diet and whatnot, but I think that Paddy is going to come in very professional here, and I think that we're going to see the best version that we've ever seen from him. Okay, 30 years old. He's starting to get more and more octagon experience. The confidence is oozing from him. I mean, he's a fight finisher. You take a look at his 22 victories. He's only gone to a decision 6 times. Right, this is a 25-minute fight. We've seen Chandler finished in the majority of his losses, finished in 5 of his 9 losses. I don't know why. My gut is telling me that Paddy can get a submission in this fight. And as long as Chandler doesn't crack him with that big knockout, I feel that Paddy could be pumping the jab and just out-voluming and just slightly out-striking Chandler, like we've seen from him typically in the UFC. All right, and it's a big jump though, as far as Pimlet trying to live up to some of the work that Dustin Poirier and Gaethje have done to Chandler. But the size advantage, the striking's coming around, and Chandler, man, with that age and all that, I could just see Pimlet being a little bit of a step ahead. And that's the way I'm going to go with my pick here as we'll start to settle in, man. I'm leaning towards Paddy's side. I like the jiu-jitsu, the size, and how he's a little bit more technical with his striking, right? Chandler's explosive, but I think the straight strikes of Paddy could pay dividends. And I think that people will be somewhat surprised to see how those striking exchanges go. That's my gut here. Initially, I was leaning towards Chandler's way. I was feeling maybe that Chandler can start to expose Paddy, but every time, I look to fade Paddy, man, he goes out there and he impresses. Man, you could bring up the Tony Ferguson fight and say, hey, that wasn't the greatest performance by Paddy, as he didn't look that as good as the fight progressed. I understand that. I just kind of chalked it up to an off day at the office. I don't know why, man. My gut's telling me he's going to show up a little bit more so here. And when you think about Tony Ferguson versus Chandler, I get it. He punted his head off. That was a long time ago. Age. All right, mileage and where the vehicle is at currently. And that's the main thing that I want to kind of harp on here, is that Paddy is the more primed vehicle coming into this matchup here against Chandler. And it's a close fight. I'm going to go with my gut, though, where my gut settled. And I'm going to say that Paddy gets the job done. And I think a big question is can Paddy find a finish? I mean, Charles couldn't find that finish on Chandler in 25 minutes. In that last fight, he couldn't find a sub, but Poirier did find the sub earlier. I think that if there's a lot more striking going on, that's how the submission could possibly open up. All right, I don't think that Paddy could just be hanging on his back looking for that sub. If he really wants to find a finish, I think that the fight really has to unravel. They got to go to war a little bit where Chandler could be diminished, and eventually you could sink in a rear naked choke. And that's not unrealistic that could play out like that. But I'm going to say that Patty wins a decision. I'm going to say it plays out pretty closely, but Patty snags up 3 rounds in this fight and gets his hand raised. And there's going to be some big matchups in the near future for Pimblett. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's coming up next for Dustin Poirier. Maybe Pimblett gets this fight and that's the fight that they make. I don't know. Comment below. Who do you guys think would be next for Pimblett if he gets this victory? And you could also let me know if you have him getting the W there, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are on Chandler. Now, take a look at the line movement here. This fight opened up around pick'em odds, and we're seeing a lot of action coming in on Pimblett. And I think there's something behind that. I do. It's kind of like, it's just funny looking at the line, because it's kind of how my brain went with this fight. The more I dove into it, the more I looked at tape and just kind of was turning over some stones. I'm like, this is kind of pointing towards Pimblett's way. Okay, but he cannot get caught with that grenade. If he gets hit with that grenade, he will explode and he'll be finished up. And he has to be careful for that. Here we go. We got the main event. You guys don't forget, if you reach out to me and sign up through my referral link to Bovada, I will give you my entire betting slate, the official plays that I'm targeting for this card for free. All right, guys. And if you're interested in general, even if you don't want to sign up to the sportsbook, reach out to me for further information. This fight is going to be epic here. Volkanovski looks to regain his title against Diego Lopes, who's been on absolute fire. Okay. Take a look at the work that Lopes has been putting in. Okay. The Movsar Evlovoya fight, that was a fight that played out very, very close, and you had to be impressed with him stepping in on short notice and giving Movsar the biggest challenge that we've seen him given inside the octagon, okay? Followed that up by running through Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Yusuf. That was a fun fight, got the quick knockout there. Went on to defeat Dan Ige. That's the one fight that some people are questioning, because it played out a little bit closer than some people expected it to, especially if you remember where the betting line settled. Dan Ige hopped off the couch, drove over to the arena. I get it, but look at the bounce back performance that he had against Ortega. Okay, and Ortega was coming into that fight hot. Okay, Ortega was coming in off the Yair Rodriguez redemption victory after the whole injury thing that we just talked about. I mean, that was a big victory. You take a look at the numbers in that fight. Lopes outstruck Ortega 113-69. Lopes was 1 of 1 on his takedowns. He's the one that had the control time down on the mat using his jiu-jitsu. Lopes is well-rounded. Okay, he's a nasty striker, but he also has sick jiu-jitsu. I saw some people poking fun at the way he was hitting the pads here, saying that Volkanovski's going to be more technical, just not really understanding what he's doing here, man. He's just putting in that work right now, all right? And if things become a slugfest in the cage, he's going to be fully prepared to point down at the mat and pull off his Max Holloway, just putting his head down and slugging it out, all right? But I like what I'm seeing from him. I feel when I see him putting in work on the mitts, and not just this video, but in general, I'm seeing a fighter that is in his prime, okay? And if any of you guys that are out there that put work on the pads, even if it's just hitting the heavy bag, if any of you guys are fighters, you guys know what I'm saying, all right? Especially for those of you guys that are getting older. Like, I'm getting older, man, and I know I can still put it in on the bag, but there's something about being in your physical prime where you just, you feel and you hear that thud on the pads when you're just cracking it, okay? You feel it, and that translates to when you're in the cage and you're fighting, and I think that Lopes just has more pop on his strikes right now. I think that he's in his physical prime. I think he's an animal right now, and there's some major question marks coming in on the Volkanovski side. I mean, yeah, if you knew this was going to be a clean match, right, and things were going to just go smoothly, you could maybe lean towards Volkanovski being more complete and being a slight step above. But what makes you think that this is going to be a clean fight? And how comfortable are you going to feel back in a fighter that was just brutally KO'd in his last 2 fights, when Lopes is coming forward with a full head of steam, looking to land heavy damage, when he's looking to cream Volkanovski with the big overhand? How do you like that? And I had some time to think that through, and I was like, you know what? I gotta reference the old cream. If you guys remember that, man, I'm gonna cream you with the shot. You know, you don't really hear a lot of people throwing that reference around these days, right? A little knuckle sandwich, gonna cream you. I know you may be thinking of something else when we're talking cream, but you guys know what I'm talking about, man. Lopes is gonna be the aggressor in this fight. I truly believe that. Okay, I think that Volkanovski is going to look to kind of be the matador, and he'll be on the back foot. He'll be circling. He'll look to counter. He's dangerous as well. If Lopes gets a little overzealous, he could definitely counter him. But make no mistake, it's going to be Lopes that's going to be the aggressor. Right? He's looking to prove himself. He's looking to get his hands on the gold. Right? He's never been a champ before in the UFC. Volkanovski's already had his time. Lopes is hungry. Lopes has some of the greatest cardio that I've seen in the fight game, and that dude can push, man. Okay, so he's not going to stop. And this fight's going to get ugly. And I don't have a lot of confidence that Volkanovski is going to hold up. Now, Volkanovski has phenomenal cardio too. Of course, that's not to be overlooked. I mean, you think about the first fight against Makhachev, that was crazy. But as things get ugly, why do I just feel that Volkanovski is going to slip on a banana peel and he's going to get hurt in this fight? And even if he doesn't get finished, it's going to cost him rounds. It's going to cost him a decision. That's what I'm seeing here, man. Lopes is big. You take a look at the difference in stature. I know Volkanovski has a crazy reach for his height, which it says here that he has a 1/2 inch reach, but I'm also seeing that if you take a look at the UFC's website, you actually see that it's Lopes that has a 1 inch reach advantage, and Lopes is much taller. I mean, he has a much larger frame. We already seen them square off at the press conference. I mean, Lopes towered over him. I think that that's going to play into this matchup as well. Right? I know Volkanovski was once 200 something pounds playing rugby, but now he's getting up there in age. I think he's a little bit more frail. The chin is a little diminished, and I think that Lopes is going to be able to hang anywhere this fight goes. All right, Volkanovski's not going to be able to stifle him down on the mat, hold him down, and solidify rounds. Good luck holding Lopes down. Did you guys remember how that looked when Movsar was trying to hold him down on a couple days notice? An excellent grappler. I mean, Lopes was active down on the mat, and you know that's just not how it's going to play out. This dude's going to be a rabid raccoon, and sorry guys, I'm having some fun with this one, man. I really settled in with my Diego Lopes pick. I want you guys for a second to think about some of the most dominant champs that we've ever seen in the fight game. When they fall off their throne, how do they look after they fall off the throne, right? Think about the follow-up fights that happen afterwards, right? Think about Anderson Silva once he was KO'd by Chris Weidman. You take a look at his win-to-loss ratio. I mean, he had a lot of tough performances after that. Of course, he broke his leg. I mean, but he was taking L's to middle of the pack type fighters. He was just never the same. I know he was way up there in age, but he fell off his throne. Look at Israel Adesanya, takes that L to Sean Strickland. Now he's getting finished up by Imavov, and he's taking L's. Got finished up by Dricus Duplessis. You guys know I'm forgetting a bunch. I mean, think about the most dominant champs that we've seen. Think about the cream of the crop. Think about when they took that first L. Hit me up in the comment section. How did it go for them and their follow-up fights and their next 5 fights? Okay, were they winning the majority of them? And not only were they winning or losing, but were they being devastatingly finished up once again? Did we see that continued pattern of them being finished up and finished up? All right, guys, let's go take a look at the betting line. Diego Lopes opened up as a plus 110. He was a plus 135, and now he's right around a plus 120, plus 127, give or take, on April 3rd. And I do expect him to stay the dog, but I would not be surprised if this line tightens up quite a bit and it's closer to pick 'em odds. Maybe he's like a very, very minuscule dog. Something's telling me when they see these guys at the weigh-ins and they're seeing the young and prime and hungry Diego Lopes, they're going to see some action coming on him. I know Volkanovski's name holds a lot of weight, legend of the fight game, but I think he falls short here. And as far as the betting line goes, I obviously feel the value is on the plus side, and I say Diego Lopes gets a TKO finish in this fight. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. This is a big card, man. I've been chirping on the mic here for quite a bit. Hopefully I wasn't slowing down towards the tail end of this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it was insightful. If it was, please smash that like button. And then you guys know I got to hit you up with some closing thoughts. If this was on my mind after a recent video that I did, somebody hit up the comment section and really was putting themselves out there, kind of talking about how they've been at a little bit of a vulnerable time mentally and just been going through it, and how they appreciate the show. And I want to let you guys know that that means a lot to me. I've actually got a couple of those, but to you specifically that just wrote that, man, I want to let you know, man, I'm thinking of you, and it means a lot to me that you care to listen to me on the mic, that much, and that it makes you feel a little bit better. And I'm glad that I could help in any type of way. And what I would tell you is think about life like this. For any of you guys that are going through rough times, a lot of you couldn't even fathom, unless you really sit down and think about it, you couldn't fathom how many generations and generations of your ancestors who went through all types of adversity and all types of challenges and prevailed through them, and were able to procreate, and and all that led up to you being here. So just think about it like that. Don't think about it like there's a lot of stress on your shoulders or expectations from all that, but be grateful in the sense and feel confidence as their genes, all what they did, that all what flowed through their body flows through you, and you have that in you as well. And I know life has changed a lot throughout the years, and that's part of the reason why, in my opinion, a lot of people go through adversity and tough times mentally. You know, if you're sitting inside or you're not getting out, you're not getting that sun on you, you're not getting healthy challenges, you're not playing sports, maybe go join a local softball team, go to your gym, socialize. And in the beginning, it may not be that easy, but you got to break through and you got to do that. That's what you're lacking. That's what a lot of you guys as men too, right? The majority of people that watch the show are men. That's what men need. You need that camaraderie. You need to be out there challenging yourself and just going through healthy challenges. All right. If you avoid them and you kind of hide from them, your body will let you know, and it'll give you negative feedback and you won't feel good. And that's not always the case. Everyone has different situations going on too, but just think about that and be proud of who you are. Be proud of all your ancestors that led you to you being here today and breathing in that fresh oxygen and that sun hitting your skin, and just, you know, the world is your oyster, I guess they say, whatever that means, but sounds good. But it really is. If you just think about it, I feel that when you wake up on a Saturday afternoon, a Sunday afternoon, I mean, you could do just about anything that you want to do. All right. Relatively, right? You could do anything you want to do, man. You can go take a walk. You can go stroll down to the park. You can go to the local pub. You can go to the beach. You can go to your lake, whatever, set up a towel, sit there, put some music on. You could feel good, man. You got your phone. You could read a book on your phone, man. You could listen to a podcast. I mean, you could do anything you want. And all those opportunities are great. And you're blessed to have those opportunities. And some people, not only do they don't even necessarily wish they could, because some people, depending on, you know, how that goes, they're not even here to have those feelings, right? So enjoy your time while you're here. Enjoy your time while you're here and appreciate your time while you're here, because as we all know, as we're getting older, man, it's flying by. And for you youngsters, you don't even really understand how that works until you get older. Just like all those old people say to you, your uncle and this and that, oh, it goes faster and faster. Well, you got Uncle Teller, big Unc right here telling you that, you know, it's going faster and faster. All right. My birthday is about to take place here in a couple of days, and it keeps coming, bro. It comes faster and faster. So appreciate all your time, count all your blessings, and try to look at the glass like it's half full, not half empty, even though it might be hard to do. But if you start repeating that to yourself and keep telling yourself that the glass is half full, not empty, you're going to start to see benefits from that as well. You will start to feel better. All right. Eat healthy. All right, guys. I wish you all the best. Sorry if I'm preaching there, but all you guys that tune into the show, man, you guys mean a lot to me, for real. You know what I mean? Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. And we kind of have a thing going on here, right? You guys, I get it, because I listen to other podcasts too. So I get it. And it just makes me feel, I'm honored that you guys tune in and watch the show. And I'm honored that I could help any of you guys get through your weeks and days. And I want to see the best for you guys. That's what I'm getting at right there. I want to see the best for all of you. All right. Signing out. Teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller.